Welcome, everybody, to the 25th episode of Crossing the Line with Greg Heym. Thanks, Ray. Wow, Lena actually came through there a little bit. That's because, see, Lena does exist. We've been doing this thing with the numbers. We're going to retire it today, but I have to. It's getting too hard, Ray. But 25 is an easy number for me because it's my second favorite band of all time next to the Beatles, and that would be Chicago's classic 25 or 6 to 4, which is now in a commercial, which is good because I want to hear music I like in commercials. And those you don't know, it references a time of the early morning when Robert Lamb was trying to write this song. If you listen to the lyrics, it does tell a story. But from my standpoint, the horns are phenomenal in it, but the best part is the guitar solo by Terry Kath, the most underrated guitar player in the history of the world, who unfortunately taught us don't go on a 2-day drug bender and play with loaded weapons. It doesn't go well. So we'll probably stop that with the numbers because now we're getting into weird number territory. Today is May 13th, and it's actually a beautiful day here in New York City. It started to clear up yesterday in the afternoon for the mothers out there, and very sunny today. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Ray, Lena, the weekend's good?
Oh, yeah.
See, I'm flying solo today, but don't worry. Ron Guidry, bobblehead, is here to help me. He has a lot of economic analysis to add. Hope everybody that was celebrating Mother's Day had a great day. I got to spend the day with my wife, my mom, and my sister-in-law, so it was a good time. And I am thankful. I may tease my mother and make jokes about her, but I am thankful that I still have her. Coming to you as always, from Studio 1873, tastefully decorated by our friends at the Everset.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Everset. So I said in the blog this was kind of a slow week for economic news. Maybe that's an understatement. It was unbelievably slow. Nothing major came out. So we're going to run through some things and hopefully have a little fun while we're doing it. Maybe the most real bit of news we got with jobless claims rose to their highest level since August. They're still pretty low at 231,000. Typically, you need to see numbers closer to 300,000 a week before you worry about what that could mean for unemployment. Although if you look at the jobs report for April, which was a big disappointment for compared to the last couple of months, but that was actually good news because it kind of negated the bad GDP report we received just before that, which was showing the worst of all scenarios, a slowing economy and rising prices. So it's 1 week. Weekly data is very volatile, so we don't put a lot of stock in it. We'll look at the trend. But I guess we have to expect that it's going to tick, claims are going to tick a little higher. I don't know if it's going to get as bad as you would think based on all the announcements about layoffs we keep hearing. But remember, there's about 8.4 million unfilled jobs still out there. So we'll know more in a little less than a month when the May jobs report comes out. Maybe that'll be as confusing as the last one. Who knows? Keeps me on my toes anyway, and hopefully makes the show more interesting. So we'll be ready to talk about that. The best bit of news we got last week was mortgage rates fell for the first time since March. After 5 straight weeks of pain, mortgage rates fell. Again, we can credit that to the weaker than expected jobs report. The drop wasn't insignificant from 7.22 to 7.09. But, you always hear about lucky number 7. It is not lucky when it comes to mortgage rates, and it's been that way for 5 weeks now. I think people are accepting the fact that rates are what they are, and we're not going to see the rates we want for a long time. But it also, people feel that they have to act more quickly because there still is so little supply in most markets across the U.S. They really have a fear of missing out. A lot of people have been having a hard time finding anything. One of the reasons we keep mentioning about that is there's potential sellers out there, but who are afraid to list their home. because they don't want to give up a low mortgage rate. And then if they buy something else, they'll have a much higher rate, which is hurting some segments of the market. And, this leads to prices that are still going up in most parts of the U.S. at a time when rates are still stubbornly high. But again, we say way too much here. The average 30-year conforming mortgage rate over the past 50 years is closer to 7.8%. So, these are still not historically high rates unless you're only 20 years old. Then you think they're really high, and it's never been higher. One other tidbit of news that was sort of interesting. Now, if I told you, Ray, that New York City was the richest city in the world, you'd probably say, yeah, okay. You would believe it. Of course you would. There is a study by Henley and Partners, not Don Henley, in partnership with New World Wealth, and they released a report of the world's wealthiest cities. New York City has 349,500 millionaires. That's 1 millionaire for every 24 people that lives here. So let's get more New Yorkers in here. If we get up to 24, someone will be a millionaire. Maybe they buy us lunch or something like that. Over the past 10 years, the number of millionaires living in New York City has jumped by 48%. And by the way, there's 60 billionaires living here. We should get to know those people. That would be helpful. And the number of millionaires may be going up. We got a report from a consulting firm named Johnson Associates that Wall Street bonuses are going to rise this year. It's only the middle of May, and stock market's had a good year. The founder, Alan Johnson, said, quote, "We are seeing almost all segments on Wall Street raising compensation." Well, see, we cut the quote off there because that's all we need to hear. Things are looking good so far. Obviously, with an election coming and 2 wars going on and a lot of the uncertainty, things can always change. But we'll take the good news now while we have it, because we could always use good news. If you're wondering what area was second, it was the Bay Area. A lot of tech moguls out there. 305,700 millionaires, more billionaires, 68 billionaires. So they're 8 ahead of New York. We got to get 8 of them to move here, and then we're good. Number 3 was Tokyo, 4 Singapore, 5 London. L.A. comes in 6th. But it was interesting, too, is the change over the last 10 years. I mentioned 48% more millionaires here in New York City since 2013. In the Bay Area, they have 82% more millionaires than they did 10 years ago. London and Tokyo are actually losing millionaires. Maybe we're getting them to come here. I don't know. But all the talk of the wealthy leaving New York City, there's still some data that shows there's still a lot of them here. And maybe they're not leaving at as fast a pace as we would have thought. So that was basically the line. It wasn't the most exciting, except for one item, which I'm going to save until we return from this very special message.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
And we're back. I've talked a lot about the Fed and how they really messed up on inflation and have a really hard time explaining their logic to people. And there was an article this week about this very topic, and it made me think about the movie Cool Hand Luke. Now, I've never seen the movie. I know it's a classic, Paul Newman, where there's a famous scene where the captain is yelling at Newman, and he says in his southern drawl, what we've got here is failure to communicate. So I got to watch that movie already because I've quoted it too many times. But this begs a question: does the Fed have this problem? Are they communicating in a way where we can understand and it makes sense to us and that we trust in the Fed? So the answer to this question about how effectively they communicate depends on who you ask. If you ask the academic and Fed watchers, they were surveyed by the Brookings Institution. They gave the Fed a B+ for their communications. But they eat, sleep, breathe Fed speak. They know what all that stuff means that, the rest of us would scratch our head and go, why do they talk like this? What are they afraid of? It always seems that they're using Mad Libs to write their statements. It's almost like, and if you ever look, the Wall Street Journal and some of these websites will show what's changed in their statements. And it's basically the same thing. Like economic growth has blank space since our last meeting. Moderated, accelerated, they fill in the words. I don't know what they spend 2 days doing in these meetings. Maybe they're having nice lunches and hanging out. But, but for the analysts out there that follow this, they're used to it and they understand it and they kind of know what they mean. But what about the average person? If we stop somebody on the street and then they don't take a swing at us and we ask them about the Fed, what would they say? Well, a new Gallup poll found that just 39% of the people they asked said they have a, quote, great deal or fair amount of confidence in the Fed chairman to, quote, do or recommend the right thing for the economy. That's actually up slightly from 36% a year ago. Maybe that improvement has something to do with the fact that inflation has come down during that time rather than Fed Chair Powell's exemplary communication skills. I don't know. Why do people have such a low view of the Fed? Is it the communication? Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, but part of it may be that they're the ones that messed up and let inflation get out of control in the first place. And the finger's pointed at them for that. I mean, I know I've been pointing the finger at them for that for a while. Again, remember how many times we were told inflation was transitory? What does transitory mean, Ray? I actually looked it up because maybe I don't know what transitory means. Because I have people telling me, well, it was transitory. Well, so first of all, how do you know what it was? It's still going on. It's still too high. But Webster's dictionary says transitory means of brief duration, not persistent. This inflation's been persistent for long enough. I think we can safely say it's not transitory. Maybe it was wishful thinking or trying to convince us, and then maybe inflation would magically go away. But not so much. But the other thing is, you always have to communicate your message. Don't let other people define you. Don't let Greg Heym speak for you. Speak for yourself. And maybe if they did write statements or in their press conferences or found some way to communicate better with the average person, there'd be more confidence in what they were doing. And in the blog, I put a quote from their January meeting, the statement that they issue. And this is a statement. The committee judges that the risks to achieving its employment and inflation goals are moving into better balance. The economic outlook is uncertain, isn't it always? I mean, come on. And the committee remains highly attentive to inflation risks. Oh, now they're attentive to it. Instead of that, why not just say, something the average person would understand, which would be more like inflation has come down, but we still got a little work to do. Try to talk a little, remember your audience. That's the one thing when people ask me about speaking in public, the number one thing is know who you're talking to. If I was talking to a bunch of economists, I would speak differently than if I was talking to, a random group of people. So I think the Fed, if they want to have more confidence from Americans, should speak more directly to them as well, instead of just saying what they say and then hoping the CNBCs of the world, square it away for the average person. Again, inflation is moving in the right direction. It is stalled, though, lately and actually ticked higher, still sitting well above the Fed's 2% target rate. We're going to get a visit from the PI brothers this week. We love the Consumer and Producer Price Index. We're also going to get data on retail sales. So that'll be very important for about a week and a half, and then the personal consumption expenditures report comes out, and we stop talking about CPI and PPI. But as anybody that watches any news or reads any paper or follows stock markets, every bit of data that's released these days is magnified by 100,000 times. Used to be people didn't even know when this stuff went out, but now the first Friday of the month, everybody's looking for the jobs report. And then from there, you've got CPI, PPI, retail sales, and this cycle. And then, one says we get a GDP report, scares everybody. Oh, no, stagflation's here. And then we get a jobs report, which shows weak hiring, but wage growth slowing. And you're like, okay, well, that's kind of more what we need. So maybe we'll get better news from the CPI and PPI, because the last couple of months, the inflation reports show things headed in the wrong direction. I don't think we're going back to anywhere near the levels of inflation we had, but we are still stuck in that red zone. I even make the analogy now that I think we've taken a couple penalties and we're out of the red zone now and need to get back in there. So hopefully we'll get some better news. And next week, we're going to have another special guest. We've had a lot of guests. We have a Ron Gidry bobblehead guest. He's been quiet, but maybe he'll jump in at the end. We're going to have Cale Goodman here, who is the co-founder of Market Proof, a real estate intelligence and analytics company. I always have interesting conversations with him. He'll be dissecting this. He also, as well as anybody out there, tracks new development here in New York City. So we'll be talking about that, but the housing market also in general. And it should be a really good time. I want to thank everybody again for continuing to support the podcast. We've done better than we ever thought. It's been a lot of fun to do, and we look forward to keep doing it. I want to thank Ray and Lena for their help with all this stuff, making us look good. And we did film a special edition, a crossover edition of Crossing the Line and Breaking Ground with Steve Kligerman. We interviewed Vicki Bean, who is a professor at NYU's Graduate School, but also former deputy mayor of New York City for housing and economic development. We talked about new development, specifically 485X, and would that give us the new housing that we need, especially affordable housing here in New York City. I mean, let's face it, affordable housing is a problem everywhere. So tune in for that. That should be available soon. We're just hitting you with so many podcasts, but you have to watch every one of them. View it as a soap opera, that if you miss something, you'd be like, what is Greg talking about? I can't believe I missed the one episode I should have watched. Well, that does it in what is our shortest episode ever, but I can only work with the material I get, and I don't want to waste anybody's time telling jokes or talking to myself, but which I don't tend to do too often. But thanks again for joining. And again, we'll have Cale Goodman next week. So tune in for that. And everybody have a great week. And let's go Rangers and Knicks.